April 18th, 1942, 8:15 in the morning. Lieutenant Colonel James Harold Doolittle stands on the deck of an aircraft carrier, 650 miles from Japan. Rain hammers his leather jacket. Waves crash over the bow. Behind him sit 16 B-25 Mitchell bombers, massive planes, Army planes, planes that should never be on a carrier deck. The mission? Launch these bombers, bomb Tokyo, then fly another 1,200 miles to China, praying the fuel doesn't run out. The odds of survival? Unknown. The odds of everyone making it back? 0. Some will crash. Some will be captured. Some will die. But 4 months after Pearl Harbor, America is desperate. Japan seems unstoppable. President Roosevelt has one question. Can we strike back? Everyone said no. Impossible. Can't be done. But Doolittle and 80 volunteers are about to prove them wrong. This is the story of the Doolittle Raid, the most audacious, desperate, impossible mission in military history, and the terrible price that came with revenge. Let me take you back to understand why this insane mission was necessary. December the 7th, 1941, Pearl Harbor. Japanese carrier aircraft attack without warning. 8 battleships sunk or damaged. 188 aircraft destroyed. 2,403 Americans killed. America declares war the next day. But declaring war and being able to fight are two different things. While America reels, Japan attacks everywhere. December 8th, Malaya invaded. December 10th, Guam falls. Philippines attacked. December 23rd, Wake Island falls after heroic resistance. December 25th, Hong Kong surrenders. By April 1942, Japan controls almost everything. French Indochina, Thailand, Malaya, Singapore, Burma, the Dutch East Indies. The Philippines are falling. Nobody has stopped them. 4 months, thousands of miles conquered. In America, people are terrified. Can Japan invade California? Hawaii? West Coast residents see Japanese submarines shelling coastal towns. They think invasion is coming. American morale? Rock bottom. We're losing everywhere. Our battleships destroyed. Our bases gone. Bad news every single day. President Roosevelt knows something must be done. Not just militarily, psychologically, America needs a victory. Needs to see that Japan can be hit. That we can strike back. Roosevelt asks his commanders, "Can we bomb Japan?" The answer comes back, "No, impossible. Japan is too far. Our closest bases are over 2,000 miles away. B-17 bombers have that range, but only one way. You'd lose every plane. What about carriers? Carrier aircraft have short range, maybe 200 miles. To launch carrier planes, you'd need to get within 200 miles of Japan. Impossible. Japanese patrol planes would spot you. Submarines would find you. You'd never get close enough. Everyone tells Roosevelt, can't be done. Forget it. But then one Navy captain had a crazy idea. January 1942. Captain Francis Lowe is visiting Norfolk Naval Air Station. He watches planes taking off from a carrier deck outline painted on the runway. Standard training. Then Lowe has an idea. A brilliant, insane idea. What if you launched Army bombers from a Navy carrier? Think about it. Army B-25 bombers have much longer range than carrier aircraft, about 1,300 miles. If you launched them from a carrier, got within 400 or 500 miles of Japan, they could bomb Tokyo and fly to China. One-way mission, but possible. Lowe takes the idea to Admiral Ernest King, Chief of Naval Operations. King thinks it's crazy. But interesting. King calls his aviation expert, Captain Donald Duncan. Is this possible? Duncan thinks. Army bombers are huge compared to carrier aircraft. The B-25 weighs 27,000 pounds loaded. Carrier planes weigh maybe 10,000. Can the deck handle it? Can a B-25 even take off in that short distance? Duncan says, maybe. Let me check. He does the math, checks aircraft specs, comes back with an answer. Theoretically possible. But we need to test it. King loves it. Takes it to General Hap Arnold, head of the Army Air Forces. Arnold is thrilled, aggressive, offensive. Exactly what America needs. Arnold asks, who can lead this? He already knows the answer. Lieutenant Colonel Jimmy Doolittle, the best pilot in the Army. Maybe the best pilot in the world. Let me tell you about Jimmy Doolittle, because this man was extraordinary. Born 1896, stunt pilot, risk-taker, brilliant engineer. Doolittle wasn't just a pilot. He was the pilot. First person to fly across America in under 24 hours. First to perform the dangerous outside loop. First pilot to take off, fly, and land using instruments alone. No visibility. Proving blind flying was possible. And Doolittle had a doctorate in aeronautical engineering from MIT. He wasn't just brave. He was genius-level smart. By 1942, Doolittle is 45 years old. Ancient for a combat pilot. Most are in their 20s. But Arnold wants Doolittle, not just to plan it, to lead it. To fly the first plane, Doolittle protests. I'm too valuable. Send someone else. Arnold replies, if you don't lead it, it doesn't happen. I need someone the men will follow into something this dangerous. That's you. Doolittle accepts, on one condition. If this works, I want my rank back, Arnold promises. You'll get it, so Doolittle takes the job. Planning an impossible mission, but first, they need to prove it's even possible. February 3rd, 1942. USS Hornet, off Norfolk, Virginia. 2 B-25 bombers are loaded onto the carrier deck. The test. Can these massive planes actually take off from a carrier? The pilots are nervous. The carrier deck is 827 feet long. A B-25 normally needs 1,500 feet of runway. The math doesn't work. This shouldn't be possible. But Hornet turns into the wind. 20 knots of speed. Wind over deck. Over 30 knots total. The pilot revs engines to full power. Releases brakes. The B-25 rolls forward, picks up speed, and lifts off with 200 feet of deck to spare. It works. Holy hell, it actually works. Both B-25s take off successfully. Doolittle gets the news. It's possible. Now, make it happen. Doolittle needs planes. He gets 24 brand-new B-25B bombers pulled from production. They're flown to Minneapolis for serious modifications. First, extra fuel. Standard B-25 holds 646 gallons. Not enough. They install a collapsible rubber tank in the bomb bay. 265 gallons. Another tank where the belly turret was. 160 gallons. Plus a 60-gallon tank in the crawlway. Total, 1,141 gallons. Almost double normal capacity. Range increases from 1,300 miles to about 2,400. Second, weight reduction. Remove the belly turret. Remove most defensive guns. Keep only the top turret. The tail gun position, they fit it with broomsticks painted black. Fake guns. Psychological warfare. Third, a special bomb site. The classified Norden bomb site is too secret to risk over Japan. Plus, this raid will be low altitude. Captain Charles Ross designs a new site from 20 cents of materials. Aluminum pieces and wire. Crude, but effective at low altitude. They call it the Mark Twain site. Fourth, bomb racks modified. Each plane will carry 4 500-pound bombs. 3 high explosive. The fourth is a bundle of incendiaries. designed to start fires in Tokyo's wood and paper buildings. The modifications take 3 weeks. By early March, planes are ready. Now, Doolittle needs crews. March 1942. Doolittle goes to the 17th Bombardment Group at Pendleton, Oregon. He can't order men on this mission. Too dangerous. It has to be voluntary. But he can't tell them what it is. Security. So he asks for volunteers for an extremely hazardous mission. No details. No explanation, just, it's dangerous. It's important. You might not come back. 140 men volunteer. Immediately. No hesitation. Doolittle picks the best. 24 crews, 5 men each. 120 men total. Average age, 24. Most have families. Most have never seen combat. They have no idea what they volunteered for. March 1st. The crews arrive at Eglin Field, Florida for training. Doolittle finally tells them more. We're going to bomb Japan. From a carrier, one-way mission. We'll bail out in China. The men are stunned. Bomb Japan? From a carrier? That's impossible. Doolittle explains, it's possible. We tested it. You'll train for short takeoffs. If you want out, speak now. No shame. Nobody quits. Not one man. Training is brutal. 6 weeks. Every day. First, short field takeoffs. The pilots must get airborne in under 500 feet. Normally needs 1,500. They practice constantly. Full throttle. Pull back at exact right moment. Too early, you stall. Too late, you're in the ocean. Lieutenant Dick Cole, Doolittle's co-pilot, described it. You had to yank back hard. Felt like hanging on the props. Scary every time. Second, low-level navigation. Over ocean, you navigate by compass, airspeed, and time. No landmarks. Dead reckoning. Calculate position by speed, heading, time. One mistake, and you miss Japan entirely. Third, low-altitude bombing. The raid will be at rooftop level. Maybe 1,500 feet, maybe lower. The bombardiers practice with the improvised bomb site. Fourth, survival training. What to do if you crash in the ocean? What if you bail out over China? Basic Chinese phrases. Maps printed on silk. Waterproof. Won't tear. By early April, they're ready. As ready as possible for something this insane. Meanwhile, final mission details get locked down. The targets, Tokyo and 4 other cities. Tokyo is primary, but to spread the attack, some planes will hit Yokohama, Osaka, Kobe, and Nagoya, all major industrial cities. Each plane gets specific targets, mostly military and industrial. Factories, oil refineries, dockyards, aircraft plants. Some targets are near residential areas. Collateral damage is expected, but orders are clear. Military and industrial only. The launch point. The task force will try to get within 400 miles of Japan before launching. That gives enough range to hit Japan and reach China. But if discovered early, they'll have to launch farther out, maybe 500 or 600 miles. That makes reaching China much harder, maybe impossible. The escape route. After bombing, fly southwest to China. Land at airfields in Chinese nationalist territory. Chiang Kai-shek's forces have been notified. They're supposed to prepare landing fields and homing beacons. The planes arrive at night. Land. Refuel, if possible. Crews get evacuated. That's the plan. But everyone knows it's optimistic. The Chinese are barely holding against Japanese invasion. Communication is terrible. Airfields might not be ready. Beacons might not work. Many planes will probably run out of fuel. Crews will bail out. Many behind Japanese lines in occupied China. They'll have to escape through enemy territory. It's a terrible plan. But it's the only plan. April 1st, 1942. The modified B-25s fly from Florida to Alameda Naval Air Station in California. The crews follow separately. Everything secret. April 2nd. USS Hornet docks at Alameda. 16 B-25s are loaded onto Hornet's deck by crane. 16 instead of 24 to save space and weight. Each weighs over 20,000 pounds. They're secured to the deck. Wingtip to wingtip. Nose to tail. Barely any space between them. Sailors and dock workers stare. Army bombers on a carrier? What the hell is happening? Security is tight. Officially, the bombers are being ferried to Hawaii. Cover story. Nobody believes it. The 80 crew members board Hornet. Cramped quarters below deck. Navy sailors eye them curiously. That evening, Hornet casts off. Destination, classified April 8, 1942. Hornet meets Task Force 16 near Hawaii. The task force consists of USS Enterprise, USS Hornet, 4 cruisers, 8 destroyers, and 2 oilers. Admiral Bull Halsey commands from Enterprise. Aggressive, bold, perfect for this mission. His motto, attack, repeat, attack. April 8th, evening. Captain Mark Mitcher announces over loudspeaker, "This task force is going to bomb Japan. Army bombers will launch from Hornet." The ship explodes in cheers. Navy sailors, Army airmen, everyone, finally we're hitting back. But reality sets in. Japan is heavily defended. The task force might be discovered. Planes might be shot down. This might fail. Still, morale is sky high. Everyone wants this. Task Force 16 heads west toward Japan. Radio silence. No transmissions. No lights at night. Complete operational security. If Japan discovers them, mission scrubbed, or worse. The task force gets destroyed. The voyage takes 10 days. 10 days steaming toward Japan. 10 days of anticipation, anxiety, preparation. April 17, 1942. The task force is about 1,000 miles from Japan. No detection so far. Perfect. Doolittle gathers crews for final briefing. Tomorrow morning, they launch. Get within 400 miles. Turn into wind. Go. Doolittle reviews the plan one last time. Then adds, this mission is important. Not just militarily, psychologically. America needs this. Some of us might not make it, but we're doing it anyway. Silence. No questions. Doolittle finishes. Get some sleep. Tomorrow we make history. Some men sleep. Some don't. Some write final letters. Some pray. Some sit quietly, thinking. Lieutenant Ted Lawson later wrote, "I lay thinking about my wife, about home, about whether I'd ever see them again. I wasn't scared exactly, just aware. This might be it." April 18, 1942, 3 in the morning. Klaxons sound. General quarters. All hands to battle stations. Something happened. The task force has been discovered. Enterprise radar detected a Japanese patrol boat. A fishing vessel with radio. About 40 miles ahead, the cruiser USS Nashville sank it with gunfire. But the boat probably radioed a report first. Admiral Halsey faces a terrible decision. The task force is 650 miles from Japan, much farther than planned. If they continue, they'll probably be intercepted. Patrol planes will find them. Submarines will attack. The carriers might be sunk. Halsey decides, launch now, immediately. Even though it's 200-plus miles farther than planned. The bombers might not reach China, but at least they'll bomb Japan. That's something. Halsey signals Hornet. Launch aircraft. To Colonel Doolittle and his gallant command, good luck and God bless you. Doolittle gets the message. 650 miles instead of 400. That's a huge problem. The extra 250 miles means less margin. Some planes might not reach China, but orders are orders. Doolittle addresses the crews. We're launching early. We've been spotted. We're 650 miles out instead of 400. We'll be cutting it close on fuel, but we're going. Everybody understand? The crews nod. Nobody complains. They knew this might happen. Man your planes. We launch in 1 hour. 4 in the morning. The crews scramble. Deck crew removes lashings. Pilots do pre-flight checks. Navigators check maps. Bombardiers check bombs. Gunners check weapons. The weather is terrible. Heavy seas. Wind. Rain. Waves crash over the bow. The carrier pitches and rolls violently. This makes takeoff even more dangerous. The 16 B-25s line up nose to tail. Doolittle's plane first. The deck crew marked a white line, the absolute minimum takeoff point. If you're not airborne by that line, you're in the ocean. Doolittle climbs into the cockpit. Co-pilot Dick Cole slides into the right seat. Navigator Henry Potter checks maps. Bombardier Fred Bramer checks the sight. Gunner Paul Leonard mans the turret. Doolittle starts engines. Both radials roar to life. He runs through the checklist. Everything works. He looks at Cole. Ready? Cole nods. Ready. Doolittle looks forward. Deck ahead, ocean beyond, rain, wind, waves. This is insane. But they're doing it anyway. 8:20 in the morning. Hornet turns into the wind. The bow rises and falls violently. Deck Officer Lieutenant Henry Miller stands to Doolittle's left, holding signal flags. He watches the bow. Waiting. Timing. The carrier rises. Falls. Rises. When the bow starts rising, giving Doolittle a slight uphill advantage, Miller drops the flags. Go! Doolittle releases brakes, shoves throttles forward. Both engines scream. The B-25 rolls forward, picking up speed. 100 feet. 200. 300. Doolittle pulls back. 400 feet. The B-25 is at the deck edge. Too slow. Not enough lift. Then the carrier drops into a trough. The deck falls away. Suddenly Doolittle has extra altitude. The B-25's wheels clear the deck. The plane dips toward the waves. Doolittle muscles it up, climbing, gaining altitude. Airborne. Against all odds, Jimmy Doolittle just launched a fully loaded medium bomber from an aircraft carrier. The impossible mission has started. On deck, sailors and crew erupt in cheers. 1 down, 15 to go. Every 70 seconds, another B-25 launches, one after another. Each takeoff terrifying. Lieutenant Travis Hoover, Plane 2. Clean takeoff. Lieutenant Bob Gray, Plane 3. Close call. Nearly doesn't lift. Dips toward waves, but recovers. Lieutenant Brick Holstrom, Plane 4. Smooth. Lieutenant Dave Jones, Plane 5. Rough. One engine coughs during takeoff. Fishtails, but he controls it. 1 by 1, all 16 launch successfully. 0 accidents. 0 planes in the water. The last plane, piloted by Lieutenant Bill Farrow, launches at 9:20, exactly 1 hour after Doolittle. All 16 bombers airborne. Mission is go. Admiral Halsey watches from Enterprise and signals, "Good luck, and God bless you." Task Force 16 immediately turns east, getting out, heading home. The carriers did their job. Now it's up to the Army. The 16 B-25s circle into loose formation and turn west, toward Japan, toward Tokyo, toward destiny. The planes drop to wave-top altitude, literally 50 feet above water. Flying so low, the propellers kick up spray. This avoids radar. Japanese radar in 1942 isn't great, but why risk it? Stay low, stay invisible. The flight takes about 5 hours. 5 hours of intense concentration, Pilots fly instruments and dead reckoning. No landmarks over ocean. Just compass, airspeed, time. Navigators calculate constantly. Wind drift, speed variations, course corrections. 5 hours flying 50 feet above the Pacific. One mistake, one moment of inattention, you hit a wave. Instantly dead. Gunners watch for patrol planes. They don't see any. Incredible luck. Either the patrol boat didn't get a clear message, or Japanese search planes are looking in the wrong area. The bombers are undetected. Around noon, the navigator in Doolittle's plane taps his shoulder. Points ahead. Land. Japan. The coast is visible. They made it. They're actually here, about to bomb the Japanese homeland. Doolittle wiggles his wings. The signal. There it is. Get ready. The 16 planes split up. Each has assigned targets in different cities. Independent operations now. Doolittle's target. Tokyo. Industrial areas in northern Tokyo. His plane carries 3 500-pound high-explosive bombs and 1 cluster of incendiaries. The B-25 crosses the coast at wave-top level. Still low, still fast, still undetected, then Doolittle pulls up, climbing to 1,500 feet. Attack altitude. No point staying low anymore. They're going to be spotted. Time to hit targets and get out. Ahead. Tokyo, capital of the Japanese Empire. Population, 6.8 million. Sprawling city. Modern buildings mixed with traditional wood-frame houses, completely unprepared for attack. Japan hasn't been bombed since the Mongol invasions in the 13th century. Japanese people feel safe. They've been told Japan is invincible. The military assured them enemy bombers can't possibly reach Japan. Now, at 12:15 on April 18, 1942, that illusion is about to be shattered. Doolittle's bombardier, Fred Bramer, looks through the Mark Twain sight. He spots the target. Industrial buildings, factories, warehouses. Target acquired. Bomb run. Doolittle steadies the plane. Level flight, air raid sirens start wailing across Tokyo, but it's too late. No warning, no time to scramble fighters, no time for anti-aircraft. The B-25 is already over target. Bombs away. 4 bombs drop. 3 high explosive, 1 incendiary cluster. They fall. Detonate on impact. Explosions ripple across the factory complex. Fireballs. Smoke. Secondary explosions as fuel ignites. Doolittle banks, hard left. Full throttle. Get out. The B-25 screams across Tokyo at 300 miles per hour. Barely above rooftops. People on the ground look up in shock. An American bomber? Over Tokyo? Impossible. Behind Doolittle, other B-25s appear. Plane after plane. Bombing different targets, explosions across the city. Power plants, oil refineries, aircraft factories, military barracks. 12 B-25s bomb Tokyo. 3 more hit Yokohama, Osaka, Kobe, and Nagoya. 16 planes. 16 targets, all hit successfully. The bombing lasts maybe 30 minutes. Then the planes disappear, heading southwest, toward China, leaving Tokyo burning. The escape is the dangerous part. Now the Japanese know they're here. Fighters will scramble. Anti-aircraft will open up. Patrol boats will watch. The next few hours are critical. Doolittle pushes his B-25 to maximum speed, 300 miles per hour, flying low again, avoiding fighters. The crew watches nervously. Any moment, they expect Japanese fighters, but incredibly, no fighters intercept. The Japanese are confused. Where did these planes come from? Carriers? Impossible. Carriers can't launch planes this big. Maybe they came from China, from Midway. The Japanese don't know. While Japanese commanders argue, the 16 B-25s escape. They fly south across the East China Sea. Toward China. Toward safety. Maybe. The sun sets. Darkness falls. The planes fly through night. Navigating by stars and dead reckoning. Fuel gauges drop. Too fast. The extra 250 miles is killing them. Every plane burning fuel faster than planned. They're all going to be close. Very close. Around 8 at night, Doolittle's navigator calculates they're near the Chinese coast. They should see land. Homing beacons should be active. Radio signals guiding them to airfields. They see nothing. No land, no lights. No radio signals. Doolittle tries the radio. Nothing. Either the Chinese didn't get the message, or couldn't prepare in time, or the weather is too bad, because a storm moved in. Rain, wind, zero visibility, darkness. The worst possible conditions. Low fuel, bad weather, no navigation aids, darkness. Doolittle makes a decision. They can't land blind in mountains in a storm. They'll have to bail out. He orders the crew to prepare. They strap on parachutes, check equipment, say quick prayers. Around 9, Doolittle estimates they're over Chinese territory, hopefully not occupied territory. He orders, bail out, go, go, go. The crew jumps, one by one, out the bomb bay, into darkness, into storm. Into China, Doolittle jumps last. He leaps into night, pulling his ripcord. The parachute deploys. He swings beneath the canopy. Rain pelts him. Wind throws him around. Below, darkness. He has no idea where he'll land. Above him, his B-25 flies on autopilot until it runs out of fuel. Crashes into a Chinese mountain. Destroyed. But it did its job. All 16 planes suffer similar fates. Not one lands safely. 15 crews bail out over China. One crew, Lieutenant Ted Lawson's plane, tries to ditch along the coast. The landing is catastrophic. The plane crashes into surf, breaks apart. Lawson's leg is shattered. Co-pilot badly injured. They struggle ashore in darkness. Wounded. Exhausted. 11. Planes crash in Chinese territory controlled by nationalists. Friendly. 4 planes crash in Japanese-occupied territory. 1 plane lands in Russia. That needs explanation. Lieutenant Edward York's plane develops fuel problems. Can't reach China. He diverts to Soviet Union. Technically an ally, but not at war with Japan. York lands at a Soviet airfield near Vladivostok. The crew is immediately interned. The Soviets impound the plane. York and crew spend 13 months in Soviet custody before escaping to Iran. They survive but miss the rest of the war. The other 15 crews are scattered across hundreds of miles of Chinese territory. Most have no idea where they are. Landed in darkness, in mountains, in storm. Now they have to survive and evade. Let me tell you what happened to some crews, because their stories after the raid are as remarkable as the raid itself. Doolittle lands in a rice paddy, muddy, cold, but alive. He gathers his chute and starts walking. Has no idea where he is. Doesn't speak Chinese. Just walks. After several hours, he encounters Chinese farmers. They're terrified. Japanese patrols everywhere. But they recognize Doolittle as American. They hide him, feed him. Next day, they guide him to nationalist soldiers. Doolittle is reunited with his crew over the next few days. All 5 survived. Uninjured. Incredibly lucky. Lieutenant Travis Hoover's crew also lands safely. All 5 survive. Found by friendly Chinese, Lieutenant Bob Gray's crew has a harder time. Navigator injured in bailout. But Chinese guerrillas find them, protect them, guide them through Japanese lines. All survive. Lieutenant Ted Lawson's crew crashes in surf. Lawson's leg shattered. They struggle ashore. Chinese villagers find them, hide them. Lawson needs medical help. His leg is badly infected. A Chinese doctor, with no anesthesia, no proper equipment, amputates Lawson's leg to save his life. Lawson survives, but will never fly again. His book, 30 Seconds Over Tokyo, becomes a bestseller. One crew member, Corporal Leland Factor, dies in bailout. His parachute doesn't open properly. Impacts at high speed, dead instantly. First American casualty of the raid. Over the next several weeks, 69 of the 80 raiders make it to safety. Chinese nationalist forces, guerrillas, and civilians risk their lives to hide, feed, guide, and protect the American airmen, moving them through Japanese lines, smuggling them to safety. Incredible courage. But 11 raiders don't make it to safety. 8 are captured. 3 die in crashes or bailouts, and now the story becomes truly dark. 8 Americans captured: Lieutenant Dean Hallmark, Lieutenant Robert Meader, Lieutenant Chase Nielsen, Sergeant William Dieter, Corporal Donald Fitzmaurice, Lieutenant William Farrow, Lieutenant Robert Height, Sergeant Harold Spatz. The Japanese are furious. American bombers attacked Japan, attacked Tokyo, the sacred homeland. This cannot be allowed. This cannot go unpunished. The captured raiders are interrogated harshly. The Japanese want to know, where did you come from? How did you reach Japan? The raiders follow training. Name, rank, serial number. Nothing else? The Japanese threaten them, torture them, beatings, starvation, isolation. The raiders endure. They don't break, but the Japanese already know most of it. They recovered wreckage, found charts. Intelligence officers pieced it together. Carrier launch, bombing raid, escape to China. They know what the Japanese want is punishment, revenge. August 1942. The 8 captured raiders are put on trial. Military tribunal in Shanghai. The charge: crimes against humanity. Specifically, bombing civilian areas, causing civilian deaths. This is absurd. The raiders targeted military and industrial facilities. Yes, some bombs hit near civilian areas. That's unavoidable in a city. But they didn't deliberately target civilians, unlike Japanese bombing of Chinese cities, which deliberately targeted civilians and killed hundreds of thousands. But this isn't about justice. It's about revenge. The trial is a farce. No defense attorneys, no witnesses, no evidence beyond coerced confessions. The verdict is predetermined. All 8 found guilty. All 8 sentenced to death. October 15, 1942. 3 raiders are taken to a cemetery outside Shanghai. Dean Hallmark, William Farrow, Harold Spatz. They're forced to dig their own graves. Then they're executed, shot by firing squad, buried in unmarked graves. The other 5 have sentences commuted to life in prison. But it's not mercy. It's slower death. They're sent to prisons in Shanghai and Nanking. Brutal conditions, starvation rations, disease, no medical care, beatings, solitary confinement. December 1st, 1943. Robert Meader dies. Starvation and dysentery. His body can't take it. He's 28 years old. March 1944. William Dieter dies. Starvation and disease. He's 24. Donald Fitzmaurice dies soon after. Same causes. He's 25. Nielsen and Height survive. Barely. When the war ends in August 1945, they're liberated, skeletal, sick, traumatized, but alive. Chase Nielsen weighs 110 pounds. He went into captivity weighing 180. He spent 1,270 days in Japanese captivity, tortured, starved, watching friends die. Robert Height is in similar condition. They both spend months recovering. Physical wounds heal eventually. Psychological wounds never fully heal, but they testify at war crimes trials. Make sure the world knows what happened. What happened to their friends? But the Japanese revenge didn't stop with the captured raiders. Not even close. The Japanese military blamed China for helping the raiders. Chinese civilians had hidden the Americans, guided them to safety, helped them escape. This was unacceptable. This required punishment. The Japanese launched the Zhejiang-Jiangxi campaign. Official purpose: destroy Chinese airfields so Americans couldn't use them for future raids. Unofficial purpose: revenge, collective punishment. Terror. Japanese forces swept through Zhejiang and Jiangxi provinces in eastern China, the areas where most raiders landed, where Chinese civilians helped them. What happened next was horrific. Systematic atrocities. Villages burned. Civilians massacred. Anyone suspected of helping Americans was executed. Entire communities destroyed. The Japanese used biological warfare, deliberately spread cholera, typhoid, and plague, poisoned wells, contaminated food supplies. They wanted these provinces to suffer. The death toll is estimated at 250,000 Chinese civilians, maybe more. Exact numbers are impossible to determine. Entire villages wiped out, records destroyed, mass graves, 250,000 people, dead, because they helped American airmen, because they showed mercy and courage. Let that sink in. The Doolittle Raid cost America 5 raiders killed or executed. It cost China 250,000 innocent civilians murdered in retaliation. This is the terrible calculus of war. The Doolittle Raid was successful militarily and psychologically. It boosted American morale, showed Japan was vulnerable, forced Japan to keep resources in the homeland instead of using them. Offensively, it probably shortened the war, but it also triggered massive retaliation against Chinese civilians who had nothing to do with the decision to launch the raid. They just helped American airmen who crashed in their territory, and they paid with their lives. Did Doolittle know this would happen? Did American commanders anticipate Japanese retaliation? Probably not at this scale. Everyone knew Japanese occupation was brutal, but systematic massacre of 250,000 people? That went beyond anything anticipated. Doolittle carried guilt about this for the rest of his life. He knew Chinese civilians died because of his raid, because they helped his men. He never forgot that. After the war, Doolittle visited China multiple times, met with survivors, paid respects, tried to honor the Chinese people who sacrificed so much. But the guilt never left him. How could it? Now, let me tell you about the immediate impact of the Doolittle Raid, because the raid accomplished more than anyone expected. First, American morale. Before the raid, Americans were demoralized, losing everywhere. Bad news daily. After the raid, euphoria. America struck back. We bombed Tokyo. Japan isn't invincible. Newspapers ran huge headlines. Tokyo bombed. Doolittle does it. The American public went crazy. Morale skyrocketed. Suddenly people believed we could win this war. President Roosevelt held a press conference. Reporters asked, "Where did the bombers come from?" Roosevelt smiled and said, "Shangri-La, a mythical paradise from the novel Lost Horizon." He wouldn't reveal the carrier launch. Too secret. So he joked, Shangri-La. Americans loved it. Shangri-La became code for the raid. Later, the Navy named a carrier USS Shangri-La in honor of the raid. Second, Japanese military embarrassment. The raid humiliated Japan's military leadership. They had promised the emperor and the people that Japan was safe, that enemy bombers couldn't reach the homeland. They were wrong. Heads rolled. Literally. Several high-ranking officers were forced to resign. Some committed seppuku, ritual suicide, to atone for the failure. Japanese military pride was shattered. Third, strategic impact. The raid convinced Japanese military leaders that Japan's defense perimeter wasn't large enough. They needed to expand farther, control more ocean, create a bigger buffer zone. This led directly to the decision to attack Midway Island. The Battle of Midway, June 1942, less than 2 months after the Doolittle Raid, became the turning point of the Pacific War. Japan lost 4 carriers. America lost 1. After Midway, Japan was on the defensive. They never recovered. Would Japan have attacked Midway without the Doolittle Raid? Maybe. But the raid definitely influenced the decision, made Japan paranoid, made them overextend, led to Midway, led to their defeat. So the Doolittle Raid, a tiny tactical operation, 16 planes, 80 men, had enormous strategic consequences. It changed the war. Fourth, impact on bomber doctrine. The raid proved that medium bombers could strike targets deep in enemy territory. That long-range attacks were possible. This influenced American bomber development for the rest of the war. The B-29 Superfortress program, designed to bomb Japan from long range, was accelerated partly because of lessons from the Doolittle Raid. B-29s eventually firebombed Japanese cities and dropped the atomic bombs. Direct lineage from Doolittle's mission. Fifth, psychological impact on Japan's civilians. Before the raid, Japanese civilians felt safe. The government told them Japan was invincible. The raid shattered that illusion. If Tokyo can be bombed, nowhere is safe. This created anxiety, doubt, questions about the government's promises. The Japanese government tried to suppress information about the raid, told people it was minor, little damage, but people saw the fires, heard the explosions. They knew, and they worried. Now, let me tell you what happened to Doolittle and the surviving raiders. After the raid, Doolittle made it back to the United States in May 1942. He expected to be court-martialed. Seriously, he lost all 16 planes. Didn't bring back a single aircraft. In his mind, that's mission failure. Instead, President Roosevelt presented him with the Medal of Honor, America's highest military decoration. Roosevelt also promoted him directly from lieutenant colonel to brigadier general, skipping colonel entirely. Unprecedented. Doolittle was stunned. "Mr. President, I lost all my planes." Roosevelt replied, "You showed America and the world that Japan can be beaten. That's worth more than planes." Doolittle became a national hero. His face on newspapers and magazines, parades, speeches. He hated the attention, felt guilty about the men who died, about the Chinese civilians, but he accepted the recognition because it helped morale. Doolittle went on to command bomber forces in North Africa, Europe, and the Pacific, rose to lieutenant general, one of America's most effective air commanders. After the war, he retired but continued serving in various capacities. Died in 1993 at age 96, one of America's most decorated and respected military leaders. The other surviving raiders also became heroes. They were awarded Distinguished Flying Crosses. Some received promotions. Many continued flying combat missions. Ted Lawson, the pilot who lost his leg, couldn't fly anymore. But he wrote 30 Seconds Over Tokyo. Published in 1943, it became a bestseller. Later adapted into a major Hollywood film in 1944, starring Spencer Tracy as Doolittle and Van Johnson as Lawson. The film boosted morale and raised awareness of the raid. Dick Cole, Doolittle's co-pilot, continued flying combat missions, survived the war, became one of the raid's most prominent survivors, attended every raider reunion, spoke at schools and events, kept the memory alive. Cole died in 2019 at age 103. The last surviving Doolittle raider, Chase Nielsen and Robert Hite, The two raiders who survived Japanese captivity testified at war crimes trials after the war, helped convict Japanese officers responsible for torturing and executing their friends. They both struggled with PTSD, but eventually rebuilt their lives. Jacob de Chazer, the bombardier from Faro's crew who was also captured, had an incredible post-war story. After liberation, he became a Christian missionary, went back to Japan, spent 30 years there as a missionary, preaching forgiveness and reconciliation. Remarkable transformation from bomber to peacemaker. The raiders stayed close, formed the Doolittle Raiders Association, met annually for reunions, shared memories, honored fallen comrades. They had a special tradition. After the war, the city of Tucson, Arizona gave the raiders a set of 80 silver goblets, one for each man on the mission, each goblet engraved with a raider's name. The goblets were displayed in a special case. At each annual reunion, the surviving raiders would perform a roll call. Each living raider would turn his goblet upright. Each deceased raider's goblet remained inverted. Then the survivors would toast their fallen comrades with a bottle of 1896 cognac, bottled the year Doolittle was born, saved specifically for this purpose. The plan: when only 2 raiders remained, they would open the cognac and drink a final toast. Then the reunions would end. November 9, 2013. The last reunion, only 4 raiders still alive. Dick Cole, Ed Saylor, David Thatcher, and Richard Anderson. They decided not to wait for 2 survivors. This would be the final reunion. They opened the 1896 cognac, made a final toast to all 80 raiders, to the mission, to the Chinese people who helped them, to America. It was emotional. Tears, remembrance, gratitude, the end of an era. By then, all 80 raiders had goblets turned upright or inverted. The mission that started in 1942 finally ended in 2113-71. Years later, the raiders passed away one by one. Ed Saylor died in 2015. David Thatcher died in 2016. Richard Anderson died in 2015. Dick Cole, Doolittle's co-pilot, the last surviving raider, died April 9, 2019, at age 103. With Cole's death, all 80 Doolittle raiders were gone. The last living witnesses to that impossible mission, but they left behind a legacy. They proved that courage and innovation can overcome impossible odds. That desperate times call for desperate measures. That psychological warfare matters as much as physical warfare. That a small symbolic victory can have enormous strategic impact. They also left a reminder of war's costs. 5 raiders died, 3 executed, 250,000 Chinese civilians massacred. War has consequences beyond the immediate combatants. Let me tell you about some lasting impacts and memorials. The National Museum of the U.S. Air Force in Dayton, Ohio, has a permanent Doolittle Raid exhibit. Includes one of the silver goblets, personal items from the raiders, aircraft parts recovered from crash sites. It's incredibly moving. The Smithsonian National Air and Space Museum has artifacts from the raid, maps, equipment, photographs. In China, several memorials honor both the raiders and the Chinese civilians who helped them. The most significant is in Kuzhou, Zhejiang Province, a memorial garden and museum, Chinese and American flags flying together, honoring the alliance and shared sacrifice. In Japan, there are complicated feelings about the raid. Some see it as the beginning of the American bombing campaign that eventually destroyed Japanese cities. Others recognize it as legitimate military action. There's no major memorial in Japan, but historians study it extensively. The raid changed carrier doctrine, proved that carriers could launch aircraft never designed for carrier operations. This influenced later naval aviation development. The raid also proved that psychological operations matter. Sometimes a small, symbolic strike has more impact than a large conventional attack. Modern military doctrine recognizes this. Special operations often prioritize psychological impact over physical destruction. Let me give you some final perspectives on the raid. Because history isn't simple, the raid means different things to different people. From the American perspective, the Doolittle Raid was necessary and successful. It boosted morale at a critical time, proved America could strike back, had strategic impacts that helped win the war. The raiders were heroes who risked everything. The mission justified the costs. From the Japanese perspective, the raid was a humiliation that exposed vulnerabilities. It led to strategic overreach. It also confirmed that America was a serious threat. The executions of captured raiders and retaliation against Chinese civilians were seen by Japanese militarists as appropriate responses. After the war, many Japanese recognized these actions as war crimes. From the Chinese perspective, the raid is complicated. Chinese nationalists and communists both helped the raiders. They risked and lost lives doing so. The Japanese retaliation killed 250,000 civilians. Was helping the raiders worth that cost? Impossible question. The Chinese civilians who helped didn't know what would happen. They just did what they thought was right. They paid dearly. Some Chinese historians argue the raid's costs outweighed its benefits for China. Others say the raid was part of the larger war effort against Japan, and China was already suffering massive casualties. Either way, the Chinese sacrifice is often overlooked in American accounts. It shouldn't be. From a modern perspective, the raid demonstrates both the necessity and horror of war. It was militarily justified, psychologically necessary, strategically important, but it also triggered massive retaliation against innocents. War is never clean, never simple. The Doolittle Raid exemplifies this complexity. Let me end with reflections on what the Doolittle Raid teaches us. First, desperate times require bold action. In April 1942, America needed a victory, something to prove we could fight back. The Doolittle Raid provided that. Sometimes you have to try the impossible. Second, innovation matters. The raid required solving problems nobody had solved before. Launch bombers from carriers, navigate across ocean with minimal aids, coordinate with allies in difficult circumstances. The raiders and planners found solutions. Innovation won the day. Third, courage is choosing to act despite fear. Every single raider knew the mission was dangerous, knew they might not survive. They went anyway. That's courage. Not absence of fear, action despite fear. Fourth, leadership means sharing risk. Doolittle didn't have to fly the mission. He could have stayed in Washington planning. Instead, he flew the first plane, led from the front. That's why men followed him. Leadership by example. Fifth, war has costs beyond the battlefield. The Chinese civilians who died in retaliation weren't combatants. They were farmers, villagers, families. They just helped strangers in need. War punished them for being human. This is war's tragedy. There are no clean victories. Sixth, memory matters. The Doolittle Raiders made sure their story was told, made sure the Chinese sacrifice was acknowledged, made sure future generations understood. They succeeded. We're still telling their story 80 years later. Seventh, ordinary people can do extraordinary things. The raiders weren't supermen. They were average Americans, young guys, volunteers. They trained hard, prepared thoroughly, and when the moment came, they performed extraordinarily. This is inspiring. It means extraordinary potential exists in ordinary people. The Doolittle Raid lasted about 30 seconds per target. 30 seconds over Tokyo. 30 seconds over Yokohama. 30 seconds of bombing. That's it. Tiny operation, barely a footnote in the massive scope of World War II. But those 30 seconds changed everything. Changed American morale. Changed Japanese strategy. Changed the course of the Pacific War. Proved that Japan was vulnerable. Proved that America could strike back. 80 men flew that mission. 5 died. 3 were executed. 250,000 Chinese civilians died in retaliation. Millions of Americans found hope. Japan's military was humiliated. The Pacific War shifted, all from 30 seconds over Tokyo. That's the power of symbolism, the power of courage, the power of a desperate, impossible mission attempted by ordinary people who refused to accept defeat. The Doolittle Raid wasn't the biggest air raid of World War II. Not the most destructive, not the most casualties inflicted, but it might have been the most important. Because it came at exactly the right moment, when America needed it most, when morale was lowest, when defeat seemed possible. The raid said, "We're still here. We're still fighting. We can reach you. You're not safe. We're coming." That message resonated. In America, in Japan, across the world. The message that changed the war. Today, the Doolittle Raid stands as one of history's most remarkable military operations, taught at military academies, studied by historians, remembered by veterans, honored by nations. The silver goblets sit in the Air Force Museum, all 80 upright now, all 80 raiders gone, but their legacy remains. Every time someone faces impossible odds and tries anyway, they're honoring the raiders. Every time someone leads from the front, shares the danger, they're following Doolittle's example. Every time someone innovates, finds a new solution to an old problem, they're channeling the spirit of the raid. Every time someone remembers the costs of war, the innocent lives lost, they're acknowledging the full truth of what happened. The Doolittle Raid wasn't perfect. War never is, but it was necessary. It was courageous. It was impossible. And they did it anyway. 80 men. 16 planes. 30 seconds over Tokyo. Changed history. This has been the complete story of the Doolittle Raid. Remember the 80 raiders. Remember the Chinese civilians who helped them. Remember the 250,000 who died in retaliation. Remember that courage has costs. Remember that ordinary people can do extraordinary things. Remember that sometimes the impossible just needs someone willing to try. Thank you for watching.